We're back from our short pause or holiday, where we gave you guys some breathing room to digest our previous videos. And in the meantime, I managed to produce my own video in a solo channel I'm going to develop in parallel. And Bart had some more exciting news. Bart, tell us about it.
Well, I'm not sure if it's more exciting than your video, but I got another son. Yay! So my wife delivered a healthy baby boy on July 5th. His name is Douwe Gabriel Enkelaar, and he's awesome. So
Awesome.
yeah, I've been kind of focused on that for the last couple of weeks, and now we want to get back into our friendly tech chats. Maybe not everyone knows this, but I'm currently employed as a lead site reliability engineer at bol.com. And we wanted to take an episode to just explore what that means, because not everyone is as familiar with the concept of site reliability engineering. And Mikola, you had some particular questions about
Yes.
that. So that's what we want to do today.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is a part of the Fed, in the naming of some departments, but there is also something under the hood, real shift in the way we operate, and I am very curious. And it's particularly interesting from the perspective of a relatively big in our area company like bol.com, because there the forces of scale start to play scale like development teams. To start with, what's the difference? What's the conceptual difference? We used to have ops, SysOps, that were busy with running our services. Then we had DevOps, which is some kind of blend development and operations. And now we're getting SRE, and from the name, it sounds like it's back to ops. There used to be system operations, now it's site reliability operations or something. So, what's your take?
Yeah,
What is the difference, and what are the aspects there?
I think the difference between ops and DevOps is fairly well understood. Where instead of having separate teams managing either the running and the innovation of your software, you put that responsibility of both innovating and running in the same team, so that you can align those two processes together. And as such, both operate better and innovate better if you do it right. um, Now, the difference between DevOps and SRE, it's not so much that it's a different way to approach this. It's more that SRE is a way to approach DevOps. But it's really interesting that you mentioned, like, it seems to be a step back to system engineers, because now we have specialist engineers who are responsible for the running again. But and this was also my biggest concern when I started moving into site reliability engineering. Like, aren't we just introducing another ops department? But the the angle of scale comes into play here. So, site reliability engineering is a set of practices of how to do DevOps well. So you don't need site reliability engineers to do site reliability engineering. Uh, the specialists can help DevOps teams to do site reliability engineering, but if that is good enough for you, then you don't need site reliability engineers. And you can just do site reliability engineering as a DevOps team. It's just that once you start doing that and you start using the tools that site reliability engineering gives you to find that proper balance between innovation and reliability, at some point you're going to find that the duties that come with maintaining that balance in DevOps teams will require specialist care. And at that point, you switch, you start getting full-time specialists in the team to make sure that they to focus on those duties, but always in collaboration with normal software engineers. And as such, site reliability engineering really is a specialist form of software engineering.
With traditional original SysOps, we had like silos. Developers were writing applications and delivering artifacts, and operations were running them. The DevOps movement was to break the silo, to involve developers more in running their software, I guess, right?
Yeah.
In our current conversation, that's more or less the shift. But that introduces certain chaos and too many responsibilities. Well, because running software, especially critical, and writing, they relate to each other, but there is some degree of specialization that can help, because you don't want to know everything about all the details. And you need to have some body of knowledge how to run your systems reliably, which
not just a body of knowledge, but also like a body of automation
and some infrastructure for that.
Yeah.
And so this SRE, it sounds like a step further in more bringing a little bit more order into this chaos of DevOps. Positive chaos, because it's normal what you get when you break a silo wall. Basically, you start to get interesting, creative chaos, but then you see some patterns, and then you bring in SRE to address certain deficiencies, maybe, and put some order, right?
It's really about that. How do you call that? Initiative shift. So instead of saying you are responsible for that, you are responsible for that, figure it out, you're saying we're responsible for all of it, and some people focus on the way we combine these responsibilities.
Joining responsibility, to me, that was already the DevOps step, right?
Yes.
Because
it's just that in the DevOps step, at least what we at Bottlecom missed was the structure of doing both right.
Yeah. Okay. So that was because the chaotic side.
Exactly. You're missing that step of, okay, so I have an entirely new job now, because now I have to do 2 jobs. How do I do that?
Yes. And how do I do that efficiently?
Exactly. And that is like, right, SRE is a way to do that. But in order to do that efficiently, here are the specialists who help you do it.
Okay, so it's not like in a very naive implementation of DevOps when we don't have devs and we don't have ops, everything is the same full stack, but we are getting back, and that's why it's a little bit maybe step back, not necessarily a negative one, but rethinking and reintroducing this separation, but in a healthy way, like specialization, and still the responsibility is together.
Exactly, and this shared responsibility is key. It's like, okay, we can help you, but we work together on this, and if we're not getting the same buy-in from both sides, then we're gonna break this collaboration, and you are once again responsible yourself.
Okay, and what are those means, those techniques that SRE help us in comparison to DevOps, for example, or earlier SysOps?
So the most important one is the way we measure reliability of our systems by using SLIs, SLOs, service level indicators, and service level objectives, which we continuously tweak to make sure that they correlate as directly as possible to the user happiness of the system. And by using that that budget in your objectives for those metrics that correlate heavily with user happiness as a direct way to steer how much risk you're taking in innovation, that mechanism, doing that right and efficiently, that is, I think, the most important benefit that SRE gives.
So what I hear is metrics, focus on measuring, but measuring it in an effective way, meaningful, and constantly adapting to the realities, to the situation.
Yes, and meaningful in this case means that when there's a hit in the metric, there's a hit in user happiness with your system.
Yes, and how to go a little bit in the details, how is it different from the earlier metrics? Because in the first step, when we used to have ops, there used to be metrics as well. I remember
Yes.
SLAs, I guess there was service level agreement. That's how many 999s you have in your service. What is different? How is it conceptually, practically different now?
The difference between let's see, once again, there's a couple angles here. You have the difference between SLOs and SLAs, but I think I can just most relevantly speak to the way it was at bol.com.
Yeah, I think that's perfect because we are coming from our experience.
Yeah, exactly. So we used to come from a situation where alerts and metrics, most of them were automatically generated from a platform site, which means that we would have lots of alerts on like high CPU load or
HTTP 404.
yeah. Well, yeah, and that was really interesting because I think that was one of the first cases where we had a conflict of these generic alerts don't work for us because the 404 at the web shop meant a problem, but the 404 at a backend service, where it just means this resource doesn't exist, means that's totally fine. You just ask for a resource that doesn't exist. That's a valid response.
Yeah, depending on your API, it can be just a normal situation.
Exactly. So that's an interesting angle. But so we had generated alerts that gave a lot of alerts that went to middleware, to the responsible team, and all they could do was restart the service or try and then poke the team. But since the team never decided to build those alerts, and since those alerts were never validated with the actual value that the service was delivering, teams really didn't feel ownership of those alerts. So they could be poked like, yeah, just restart it, it'll go away. And that happened so much that as we got more and more teams, it really became a more noise than signal situation. So then at that point we said, okay, we're gonna do DevOps, and we're gonna make the teams responsible for their own alerts. And at this point, basically what we did is we explained to the teams what the operations team did and moved their parts for their responsibility to the teams, which basically means that all those old alerts and old metrics that they have definitely have value. I mean, you want to see those alerts, and you can catch incidents by being aware of them. But since there's such a high noise to signal ratio, so since they're so noisy, it's more disruptive than encouraging and helpful. So we moved all that responsibility to the team, and the team got control of those alerts. But we never, I think, for most teams, properly pruned them and said, all right, what's the most important thing that we want to measure? What's the way we really what's the one thing that needs to wake us up at night and we need to fix right now in order to prevent our users from being badly impacted? And I think it made total sense that we didn't go that far into the alerts as we were shifting them, because we were so busy explaining what it means to be on call, what it means to be responsible for the operational side of your service, which was a really hard part. But that means that we never got the chance to get into what does it mean to do this right, is what we're trying to do with SRE now.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, I think I remember that was when we were transitioning to this DevOps way. Sometimes you would get very bare bone building blocks and say, now you build your setup yourself, like with database, and when you got used that someone takes care of your backups and everything and alerts, suddenly you had to do it everything your own, and there was no playbook, no guidelines, no good guidelines. And that was a little bit frustrating, I remember, from the development point of view, because not always you want to go into the details and tweaking everything. You just want to have a simple database that works with alerts when you're running out of space or something. But I agree also with you that was probably a necessary sacrifice, because it was a big shift in the way we're operating. You could not just do it in the middle ground. You had to sacrifice some things and now starting to build back. So SRE in this case is that part of building back the same defaults,
because also like doing operations decentralized in a true DevOps way is a entirely different way of doing operations than doing it centralized through system engineering specialists. You cannot take your processes from a centralized team, dump them to all teams, and say, now it'll be fine. Because what all teams need to do is something entirely different from what the centralized team did.
Yes, the scale is different, the focus is different for every team.
Exactly. Yes. And it's vital that it's not only combined with innovation, but it's also done together with innovation to enhance both. I mean, that's the new way that we're trying to implement, and I think that's what SRE can do for us if we do it right.
Can we elaborate a little bit more? You mentioned that we're also using different metrics. So we used to use SLA, now it's SLI and SLO. Briefly, maybe for those of us who don't remember it always, what is the difference in those metrics and how does it help to fine-tune our efforts?
The way I understand it, an SLA is a contract, and an SLO is an objective. So if you have an SLA, what you're saying is this is the minimum performance that we'll always give you, and if we go under it, then we get punished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no bonus.
Exactly. So an SLA really is a form of punitive bottom line agreement where you focus on how do we prevent each other from sucking. Well, an SLO is, hi, this is our service, and we are gonna aim for this level, and we're gonna do everything in our power to stay above it. Is that okay with you? So it's really more about finding the right levels instead of reaching a minimum level and punishing each other if we don't reach that.
What I hear how you describe it, so SLA is the bottom, which when we reached, it's already bad.
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't really show us, if we just focus on SLA, whether things are good or bad. It just shows okay, they were bad at this year, shows this period, and that's it.
This is crap.
Yes.
Yeah,
whereas and SLO is probably
by the
a
time
little
you
bit...
reach that, yeah, exactly. By the time you reach that, your users are already well unhappy.
Yeah. So whereas, well, you could probably measure a little bit how far you're from hitting it or not. Whereas SLO is a little bit on the higher level threshold, and it says, okay, that's what we're aiming for. It's higher than SLA, very strict, well, very simplistically presenting it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So we have some room between SLA and SLO.
And you also have some room between your SLO and your 100%. And that is your budget. And really, by focusing on that budget and making sure that you not only can consume it, but actually do consume it, because this really is a budget just like any budget. If you don't spend it, you're gonna lose it, as in your consumers are gonna be expecting a higher level of reliability than what you're aiming for. So that means if you then later at a later time consume your budget and think, yeah, we're still fine because we're aiming for this as low, then your users are already going to be unhappy with you and switching to competition, or maybe they're calling your support line, which is expensive. So yeah, that's the basics of why I believe in site reliability engineering. Why I think it's important for us as a company, and let us know what you think about it. Like, subscribe, comment, all those jazz. And we have another one coming up, right?
Yes, and we'll talk about the practical difficulties and and learnings of implementing this at bol.com.
Yes.
See you.